Mr. Manny Adumbire, if I said it right.
Yes, that's correct.
How are you doing, my friend?
I'm pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing excellent, and thank you for joining me on this
Yeah, for sure.
podcast slash interview. And I just want to start by introducing myself. Then I'll let give the opportunity to introduce you. And my name is Muntaga Sar. We just started a podcast slash interview that just talk about people's stories and share growth, discipline, self development. And Manny is a colleague of mine. We work together at Harvard University. He's an IT person, and I'm gonna let him introduce himself. Manny, what can you tell us about you if you want to, like, if you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so for me, so I do work in IT. I'm not the most like computer oriented person. But I come from Ghana,
Uh-huh,
West Africa.
uh-huh,
So I didn't, I didn't have one growing up, but I
uh-huh,
had a lot of different interests.
uh-huh,
Um, and I had a lot of supportive family members, uh, extended and a lot of extended family. Like in Africa, some of us have hundreds of
yeah.
uncles and
Uh-huh,
aunties, close
uh-huh,
uncles and aunties.
uh-huh,
Um, so I got this interest from some of my uncles that
uh-huh,
were, either in electronics and different jobs like that,
uh-huh,
that would expose me to little things. So I started getting into computers there, and
uh-huh,
I came into the U.S. when I was like 11 or so. Um,
uh-huh,
and I've been here. So I've been here. I'm 30 now, so I've been
uh-huh.
here. It's a long time, like
Pre-
yeah, almost 20 years. Um,
pre- mhm,
so yeah, I'm pretty. I'm still learning. A lot about. I wish I could travel more.
uh-huh,
Obviously now my work my work did allow me to travel for a while. I had a remote. I
uh-huh,
did a lot of projects remotely for people, but
uh-huh,
I still needed to stay in the U.S. So I haven't traveled as much as I would like. But
uh-huh.
yeah, so I was actually born in Belgium. So
Well, okay, and
so
that's
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 the
that, that's pretty cool. I had a friend of mine. He's actually born. He said that he's from Belgium and Congo. I think it's a really good mix.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's it.
When like so you grew up in Belgium and did
Only 3 years. I was 3 years when
3 years, okay.
I
And
went to Ghana.
you went back to Ghana.
Yes.
How long have you been in Ghana? If you like just have a
Yeah. So total time, I probably spent 10 years
10
of
years,
my
okay.
life there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I go visit,
Mm-hmm.
every now and then. But the longest times that I spent, where like after I left, where maybe during the summer in college, when I was
Mm-hmm.
in college, I go back for break.
Okay.
Uh,
Where did you go to college?
I was in Tufts University,
That's university.
Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah. That's pretty much
yeah.
cool story because like I think what like we talk a lot at work and we have those conversation then we really touch base about a lot of things.
Hmm.
And the one thing that impressed me most about you is one thing that you told me that I never forgot. I still keep repeating it to people. It's like, have you ever regretted working out? How how does what role that workout plays into your life? Like how do you keep yourself balanced with know you working at Harvard and you always looking to grow at the same time. So how do you keep that balance and what priority does workout takes into your day-to-day life?
Oh man, this one is huge for me
Mm-hmm.
because and actually even now until that we're all shut in with
Mm-hmm.
the quarantines.
COVID thing, yeah.
um I see it as, so the body has
Mm-hmm.
different needs,
Mm-hmm.
like we have food, oxygen,
Mm-hmm.
being with people,
Mm-hmm.
talking to people. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
they've done experiments on babies.
Mm-hmm.
If a baby hasn't been held
Mm-hmm.
or doesn't get touch from the mother,
Mm-hmm.
it can die
Mm-hmm.
from that.
Mm-hmm.
just not be
Wow.
attached. So we have
Yeah.
a lot of physical needs that aren't,
Uh-huh.
that we need to do something extra, let's say, to
Uh-huh.
kind of
Uh-huh.
fulfill those needs.
Uh-huh.
And exercise actually tends to be
Uh-huh.
one of those things that takes your, okay, so like if you take we can use a car for an example.
Mhm.
A lot of things in nature,
Mhm.
if they're let to sit in any
Mhm.
state, they have
Mhm.
a range of possible states. But if
Mhm.
they're left to sit in one state, they
Mhm.
become stuck in that
Mhm.
state.
Mhm.
So even if a car, when you are not going to drive it for a year, you're
Yeah.
advised to start it
Uh-huh.
every week,
Uh-huh.
rev the engine,
Yeah.
make sure that the oil flows
Food
through,
flows through.
all,
Uh-huh.
all these things.
Uh-huh.
You can keep the car for 100 years
Uh-huh.
and do that every time, and then one day you'll be able to drive it.
Drive it
Keep
through.
that same car in the
Uh-huh.
garage for 100 years. You
Uh-huh.
never start it,
Uh-huh.
or whatever.
Uh-huh.
You try to drive it,
Uh-huh.
is gonna fall apart.
Wow, true.
So
Uh-huh.
it's I see exercise as the just kind of similar to that, in a way to be able to
Mhm.
take the body
Mhm.
throughout the range of
Mhm.
possible physical states that it
Mhm.
has. How move your arm every ways that doesn't happen
Uh-huh.
during normal, regular day-to-day
They.
life.
Mhm.
But that range of motion is very important.
Important. Mhm.
The range of your heartbeat, first time that your heart beats 180 beats a minute, to be
Uh-huh.
when you hear that there's a tornado going to hit your city, or
Mhm. Mhm.
that somebody in your family dies. That
Mhm.
you don't want that to be the first experience of
Mhm.
having your heart beat at
True. Yeah.
200 beats a minute.
Uh-huh.
Doing it in a controlled way through a
Mhm.
run or something like that
Mhm.
gives us the ability to experience that full range of
Mhm.
capability that the body has within
Mhm.
itself, so that
Mhm.
if we do need to go to that place again, we are more comfortable there, and that also, that when we are at a resting state,
Mhm.
we have we have more, I guess, flexibility.
Mhm.
Is kind of how I think about
Mhm. I think it's a you touch it base. The way you broke it down is you use a great analogy of a car, and I think that's you cannot use a better analogy. And I think it's really really important to take care of your body. Is and just what you say, like control it in a control experiment, almost like you're taking your body to its limit. And when in your state of rest, you actually it's more like because I've studied jiu-jitsu lately.
it. Oh,
So we
nice.
I roll from time to time, and what it teaches you mostly is controlling the fear of getting caught into uncomfortable situation
Yeah,
and making it a habit to be able to think and analyze it. I think like it's really important to
yeah,
practice or do any type of physical activity. And I feel like you just broke it. I like the car analogy. If you let it in the garage for 100 years, it won't start, and you have to turn it on and off and use it. And I think that we have the same. Our body is our car in that sense,
yes. It's
and
our
it's still
vehicle.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
our vehicle, and I really like the analogy. So that will allow me just to talk about something that I think we talk about a lot, and is this discipline. Like, what do you think can help, for example, me or someone that is listening, be more disciplined, like on a day-to-day basis?
So for me, I can speak on what helps me.
Me.
It might be the feeling I get, and I'm not sure, but the
Mm-hmm,
feeling I get is that it's probably slightly different,
mm-hmm,
for each person. But
mm-hmm,
the most basic one that I find is gratefulness.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Because a lot of times,
mm-hmm,
indiscipline
mm-hmm,
for me has
mm-hmm,
come from a lack of appreciation for
mm-hmm,
the all the tools, the
mm-hmm,
abilities, the resources, and
mm-hmm,
the things that I have at hand to
mm-hmm,
make use of.
mm-hmm,
And when when I'm grateful for those things, it's difficult to be indisciplined,
mm-hmm,
because I know what resource I'm putting to waste
uh-huh.
if
That's
I don't make
yeah.
use of the time
Uh-huh.
that I have available.
Mm-hmm,
So I start every day with just gratefulness.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wake up and I
Mm-hmm.
try to have my first thought
Mm-hmm.
to be that I'm grateful for whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Usually that is that I woke up.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That is the first thing.
Uh-huh.
Um, and if I'm grateful that I woke up,
Uh-huh.
then I can't waste the day.
Wasted, yeah. And it's really I've been thinking about it lately a lot. Like I think as far as yesterday, I was studying for my finals and I'm like, what's the reason for me not to study? It's
Yeah,
like it's you it's like if you are aware of what you have, like your boundaries, all the things that are a blessing actually to your life, then you the moment you acknowledge it, like the moment you know it's there, it's really gonna be hard for you to waste it.
yeah,
I think it's the best, and it's just weird. Like really was thinking about it last night, and I'm like, and I'm glad that you actually brought it out, and it's really important for you to be aware of what you have. And like I was just, if you know, like Ramadan has started, then
yes,
I was getting ready to eat and all this stuff. I'm like, okay, what do I have right now that makes me not even more grateful compared to like a lot of people that don't have the luxury of sleeping on a bed or eating of some food or having like internet, actually even be
yeah,
able to talk through Zoom and have a conference where, like, you think about it, some part in Africa or even in here, it's the connection is really bad. Like having this opportunity makes you want to do even more than actually you were supposed to do. And
yeah.
I think it's a really great way to think about it.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
Mhm,
That's crazy. I know you are. I wanted to ask you about that. The
mhm.
finals. How is that going?
It's actually going well. I it's we did two. Did we did two already, so I have three more left, and I'm just trying. I think it's like that marathon thing we
Yeah,
always talk about. It's like
yeah,
your body is. I'm exhausted. Like I'm
yeah,
tired. I'm tired. But I think about it as a marathon. I think about it as running. Okay, it's not a sprint. I don't want to give it 100 yard and just crash down. I want to keep it consistent in a way where I will be able to do my best on those finals and get the best result. And it's so far so good. And I have to always find a way to motivate myself, either
yeah,
to watching something on YouTube that would motivate me. People that
yes,
started from yesterday. Last night I was watching a Senegalese guy from. We used to go to the same high school. He played for Memphis. His name is Gorgi Jeng, and it's like watching him go from zero and making it to the NBA, and him be able to like motivate. He's 30 years old too, so he's like telling us to respect our work or regardless of what you do, and it just made me want to even push harder, push forward more, and knowing that getting those things, like pushing to get to those results, is really important.
yeah.
And it's but so far so good. I'm just
That's
hoping
awesome,
to,
man. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
finish.
no jujitsu now though. No, no. What I'm
Not
you're saying
not
about.
I would like really like to roll. Not because I had a friend of mine. We live in the same house, and we sometimes we roll together, and it's a great practice. It's
Yeah,
different from in the gym setting, but I'm starting to love it a lot.
yeah.
And I talk about it now. It's like talk about it a lot. It's really, really
It's people. People. It's one of those things I think children should be exposed to.
yep.
It's like people. I feel like there's certain things that open a certain dimension of
Hmm.
or bring people a certain awareness of a
Hmm.
certain dimension of
Hmm.
experience that
Yeah.
and that's one of those
Hmm.
activities and the just the shared nature of it. You can't.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to do that on your own. You
It
know.
is, and I think it's really feel like I watch. I think kids are naturally flexible in that sense.
Hmm.
So I feel like I was watching a nephew, like my friend's baby, and you can see that we naturally born with those skills. Like a
Yeah.
kid can sit down, cross their feet like
Yeah.
it's nothing,
Yeah.
and they can all of a sudden they switch their position. Like they're very flexible, and I
Yeah.
think like as we grew up, we get caught up in the environment of like you have to be a certain way, you
Yeah.
have to be a certain way, so like those muscle we're not using much. I feel like when you do sports like that, it makes you aware of
Yes.
those muscle that you don't actually use as much. And it's a really really important, it's something that I discovered recently, but it's very 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 interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
very
that's
very
cool,
very
man.
interesting.
Yeah, along with discipline, man. There's so much
Uh-huh.
because I spend a lot of my day
Mm-hmm.
trying to bring myself
Mm-hmm.
back to center
Mm-hmm.
if I feel like I sway, and
Uh-huh.
what you mentioned even with the um motivational,
Mm-hmm.
things that motivate you.
Wait, you. Uh-huh.
That's another way to stay disciplined,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to have those things in your back pocket, like,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes knowing yourself. Like, I have to know
Mm-hmm.
what it feels like when I'm wasting time,
Mm-hmm.
or when I'm,
Mm-hmm.
I have to know what that feels like,
Mm-hmm.
so that can
Mm-hmm.
be the trigger to go
Yeah.
look
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
something to motivate me.
Yeah.
Because otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
and that comes back to awareness.
Yeah.
Always trying to have awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I'm wasting time, I want to be aware. I
Yeah.
want to.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not like, no, like, but be bashing myself. Oh, Manny, like,
Mm-hmm.
you're such a waste of space or something. Not like that. But
Uh-huh.
okay, I'm watching this like cartoon or whatever that,
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't need it for anything, and
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it's just like, maybe I've already had enough time to relax today, and
Relax, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm still watching this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have to bring awareness to it, and really, okay, I'm watching this right now. How is it making me feel? What am I getting from it? Isn't there something else that is there something else that I could do that maybe isn't the activity I'm trying to avoid, like
Mm-hmm.
maybe study for a test or something.
Yes, yep.
Is there something I can do that isn't that activity
Mm-hmm.
but gets me closer?
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll
I
do that. But
it's
like,
mm-hmm.
sometimes, because sometimes the discipline,
Uh-huh.
it's like a muscle. Like,
Uh-huh.
you can't,
Mm-hmm.
like, you're doing jujitsu, you're doing these shrimping or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that
Uh-huh.
forever.
Yeah.
At a certain point,
It
your
has to
muscles get
stop.
exhausted, and
Uh-huh.
you're gonna stop.
Uh-huh.
So even discipline is a muscle. The amount
Uh-huh.
of things that you can be a dictator
Mm-hmm.
about with your body, for
Mm-hmm.
most human beings,
Mm-hmm.
there's a limit
Yeah.
to the
And
amount of things
it's
you can force yourself. Do
uh-huh.
this today.
Uh-huh.
Do this.
Uh-huh.
And after a certain amount of time,
Uh-huh.
there it has to be more of a negotiation,
Yep.
with yourself.
It
So
truly like I'm glad because it brought me up to something I want to share. And it's more because like that thing is exhaustive. Like you can't be a dictator to your body like 24 hours. You have to be on all the time. It's just I mean, from my experience at least it's really quite it's impossible. And I was listening to a book, a really good book called Atomic Habit. It's by oh, let me put it out. His name is James Clear, and he really breaks it down in a very interesting way. So he said that uh, make it easier for you to do those good habits and harder to do those bad habits. For example, let's say you always check your phone or you on WhatsApp, you on Facebook. So put your phone into the other room, or like you watch TV, you don't have to, you have exam tomorrow, you have like homework. So unplug that TV, or like just make it really, really hard for you to get to those bad habits and easier. For example, you're gonna wake up and cook food. So clean the dishes, make it ready, put the stuff that you need on the thing, and it's really, really what I think of it as more of a making it easier. For example, like you don't want to drink Coke, don't buy Coke.
yeah,
Don't put it in the fridge. If it's in the fridge, you're gonna drink it. Like put some fruits and some vegetable that that that's gonna be easy access to and gonna force you to actually uh, like to change your habit. I mean, it's a really good book. If people are interested, it's on Amazon. James Clear, Atomic Habit. It's a really, really great book, and it makes you like break it down into details on like the small changes. It doesn't have to be big. It has to be like small
yeah,
changes that you can.
yeah. Like, I used to do something like that. Even wearing would wear my workout clothes if I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
go run in the morning.
Yep.
I
Mm-hmm.
wear my workout clothes
Yeah. Uh-huh.
so that when I get out, I'm just
Uh-huh.
like, oh, I'm already dressed. I
Dress,
just need
yeah.
to put my shoes on and
Uh-huh.
run.
Uh-huh.
So you know, it's a lot of times it's hard to ask
Uh-huh.
for myself if I haven't if I'm low on willpower,
Uh-huh.
those things would help me.
Yeah.
All those considerations will help me
Mm-hmm.
just bridge the gap to actually take the
Take,
action.
yeah.
Where
Yeah.
whereas if I don't
Uh-huh.
do any of those things and my willpower is low,
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
might not happen.
Yep.
So
That's
yeah,
yeah. That's a good point. It's very true because like really I tried it. I tried it for a week, and I'm like, I'm gonna experience this. I will get my gym bag, and I'll put my workout clothes in it, and I'll carry the gym bag with me everywhere. And I think like it's more of a guilt when you don't work out. It's like,
yeah,
okay, I have this gym bag on me, my shoes. There's no excuse for me not to. Even if it's like going to the gym for 15 minutes, it's something compared to like not going. And I
nothing.
think it's
Yeah,
really, yeah.
because yeah, like that's
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a lot of that feeling too, where
Mm-hmm.
I carried, but then I also had the experience where I forget what it was, but
Mm-hmm.
I would just carry it around
Uh-huh.
and not use it,
Uh-huh.
and then, like a book, like
Uh-huh.
I said, oh, I was gonna read on the
Yep.
T,
Uh-huh.
take the book on the T and
Uh-huh.
run, but I wouldn't leave enough time to
Oh,
be
yeah.
comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
walk, and so by
Mm-hmm.
the time I'm taking the trip, I'm already kind of,
Mm-hmm.
oh my god, I'm trying to get there on time,
Yeah.
and then I end up not reading. So then
Uh-huh.
I'll take this book with me back and
Yeah.
forth, and not read.
Yeah.
I'm just like, man, like
Mm-hmm.
I
Because
need to come up with a
yeah, no,
different
it's really, and
strategy.
I have like I have the same problem in a sense, mostly when it comes to reading, because like I have so many books in my bag and I didn't read them all, and I start one I don't finish, and I've been using like those audibles, and I think it's
Yeah.
really it's since like we travel a lot. I mean, beside the COVID thing that now you are home most of the time. I used to on the train or when I go for a run or when I even work out, I listen to the audible thing and it's really really I've seen it being more efficient at least for me.
I
That
same here actually.
yeah.
So that was what happened at the end.
Uh-huh.
So this was like January, I think, something.
Mm-hmm.
I signed up for Audible because I
Uh-huh.
was like, okay, this thing, I'm carrying this because what happens that I feel so like I've carried all this weight for nothing,
Uh-huh.
and I try to say, okay, maybe it was extra exercise that I
Uh-huh.
got
Uh-huh.
carrying these books around,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and I signed up for Audible and I listened to Moby Dick,
Uh-huh.
and that was the first book I listened to,
Uh-huh.
and I have the physical book,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't read it. But
Uh-huh.
when I used Audible, I couldn't
Uh-huh.
stop listening to it.
Uh-huh.
It's almost like a book you can't put down, but
Uh-huh.
it's easy because you don't have to do anything, and you
Yeah.
still get the experience of like
Uh-huh.
enjoying the story,
Uh-huh.
and so yeah, that's definitely another, like that's creative way to
Uh-huh.
overcome, like, let's say, whether it's a lack of willpower or
Uh-huh.
exhaustion or whatever. That's like
Uh-huh.
one creative way. It's like
Uh-huh.
what are the alternatives, like,
Uh-huh.
because sometimes creativity becomes the biggest thing, like
Yep.
when you're trying to figure this out,
Yeah.
it's not oh, just try harder and just like,
Yes.
yeah, how can you be creative
Yep. And I think even that's what like is that comes back to what you said is knowing yourself. I think like once you aware and you know yourself, you gonna find ways to almost trick yourself into doing the thing that you're not feeling. Like for example, like I use always the baby example. The mom want to give them food, but they know that if you like eat first, then give it to them, they will take it more. Then you try
yes,
that. Then it's like you find ways to
yes,
get to your destination, almost to your objective, without properly just like, oh, just go and eat. And like you had just force it through the kid's mouth.
yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah, no, I saw, actually, it's funny. I watched, some of the random videos I watch on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
One of them was like that. It was a lady trying to get her baby to eat, this is literally like 2 days ago. It's like she tried to get the baby to eat something.
Uh-huh.
Baby didn't want it,
Uh-huh.
and then she gave it to a teddy bear.
Uh-huh.
Not even like she didn't
Uh-huh.
even eat it. She picked a toy up
Uh-huh.
and she gave it to the teddy. And she's like, "Oh, see how Teddy loves it!" Like,
Uh-huh.
and then the baby is looking at the teddy bear,
Uh-huh.
and then now the baby wants to also eat
It,
the
yeah.
food.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Uh-huh.
like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, just
And
psychology. You know,
it's really it's I mean that's something I'm passionate about is kid psychology. And I feel
yeah.
like it's our true self, but we lose it as we grow up. It's like you watch a kid, they crawl, they fall, they get up. They don't even think about it. Oh, I've just fell. I have to stop
No,
falling. No, they just keep constantly repeating. And I observe them like this is because we all were a baby at some point. Like I was a baby, you were a baby, everybody else was a baby too. I feel like we lose those natural instinct of not being afraid of failing, not being afraid of being creative. And I feel like we lose those things as we grew up. We almost detach ourselves from who we truly are in
well,
our yeah.
Taga,
Mhm.
when a baby falls, do people laugh?
No.
When 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 there's like have you seen a comedy show where somebody trips and it's a funny thing, like if
Uh-huh.
an adult trips?
Uh-huh.
If you trip, if you're walking into the supermarket and you
Uh-huh.
trip on the sidewalk and oh you go flying,
Uh-huh.
some people will smile and like chuckle that that's like
Yeah.
funny, right?
Uh-huh.
When a baby is falling, everyone's like, oh, they're gonna hurt themselves,
Uh-huh.
or or they'll just say, okay, they didn't hurt themselves and they're happy that they learned to walk.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
When you grow up, you realize even the other kids will laugh at you when you
Uh-huh.
trip and fall.
Uh-huh.
So eventually,
Uh-huh.
we learn that
Uh-huh.
when you make a mistake, people
Uh-huh.
laugh at you, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So some of it isn't just. Some of it has to do with unlearning
Uh-huh.
the the negative feedback that society gives
True.
you
Uh-huh.
as you grow past the point
Uh-huh.
of general acceptance.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Uh-huh.
because a lot of constraints start to come up as you get older,
Only, yeah. Uh-huh.
and the way society treats,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
it's it's unfortunate, but I think that's
Uh-huh.
just how most societies are. Is that you
Yeah.
get older,
Uh-huh.
your the reactions to any mistakes, let's say mistakes, we'll use
Uh-huh.
that word, but you
Uh-huh.
make can be, not unkind.
Yeah.
It can be, rather than
Uh-huh.
when somebody falls,
Uh-huh.
oh, did you hurt yourself?
Uh-huh.
It's
Uh-huh.
like, oh, that that person.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's a
Uh-huh.
video of somebody slipping on
Uh-huh.
ice.
Uh-huh.
Out, like he goes out to take his package,
Uh-huh.
and he slides down his whole driveway.
Yeah, yeah,
The whole
yeah,
time
yeah, yeah.
he's
Uh-huh.
slipping, and it's funny. I don't know,
Uh-huh.
but it's dangerous because what if he knocks his head
Like, yep.
on the
Uh-huh.
ice,
Uh-huh.
and it's like, but if it was a baby, I don't
Uh-huh.
think that
People
video
will,
would be
yeah,
funny,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so,
Mm-hmm. I mean,
and
it's a
that's,
good, mhm.
that's just, that just has to do with walking, but
Yeah.
there's so many, it goes
Mm-hmm.
deeper than that, because
Yeah.
society has a
Mm-hmm.
huge how society reacts to what you do has a huge effect on
Mm-hmm.
what you feel comfortable doing.
That's
So,
very, very, that's absolutely, and I feel like even at time, so we're living in a society where you almost expect perfection,
yeah,
and that's not realistic. It's like we are not in the world of everything has to be perfect, and I think like that puts so much pressure on us on a daily basis, and like to a point, even at work, at school, like in the relationship, in anything, we expect things to be like perfect. I don't think it has to do with the Hollywood movie that we watch or like the story that we tell ourselves. And I feel like it's not, there's no room for growth. There's no room for failure. There's no room for accepting. There's no room for kindness, because if you do make those mistakes, people are more willing to judge than rather understands where it's coming from. Is it sometimes you're not mentally there? You might be at work, but your brain is not there. You might be at school, but you're having things going on in your life that doesn't allow you to be focused enough to get those good grades. I feel like we don't take those things into the consideration. We
no,
always look at the final result
yes,
and judge, make the like the whole judgment about money or about me based on one criteria out of your whole entire life. And I mean, it's
Yeah.
very, I don't know, sad, but it's just how society judge effort and or result. To me, it's really should be the opposite. What's the process? How did you try to get there? Like you can get and see, but if you put so much effort into that, that C actually very rewarding to you compared to someone that just maybe in a better position for them to get an A. I don't think
Yes.
if it makes sense, but it's
Oh,
just
oh, most definitely.
yeah.
If I'm a professor and a
Mm-hmm,
homeless child in my class gets a
mm-hmm,
C,
mm-hmm,
and someone from an affluent,
mm-hmm,
happy household gets an
mm-hmm,
A,
mm-hmm.
I tell that kid with a C to hold his head up.
Yep.
You know that,
Uh-huh.
but
Yes.
that's the thing. Most people won't take the time to try
Mm-hmm.
to understand
Yeah.
in general,
Mm-hmm,
because of the economy. That's just
mm-hmm,
the structure. Everything happens so fast, so
yeah.
you don't have time. You make split-second
Mm-hmm,
judgments, and
mm-hmm,
it's like everyone, no one is looked at. A lot of situations we are in, we are not seen as individuals. We are
mm-hmm,
just like serving a function. Like,
mm-hmm,
right, like right now you and I are talking, but we're just, you're
mm-hmm,
Taga, like a
mm-hmm,
Manny, we're just
mm-hmm,
talking. But the moment
mm-hmm,
you step into a, let's say you walk into a store, now
mm-hmm,
you're a customer.
mm-hmm,
You walk into your office,
mm-hmm.
now you're a
Worker.
finance associate, like
Uh-huh.
whatever.
Uh-huh.
You always have a role or
Uh-huh.
something. You walk into a
Uh-huh.
classroom, you're really a student now.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So
It's
it's
like it's
just,
yeah. It's
in order to simplify you into something that can be understood,
uh-huh.
so that the other person can do their job.
Uh-huh.
That's just how it becomes, I
Yeah.
feel like. And
It's yeah.
I don't know, a lot of a
Mm-hmm.
lot of nuance that would help people understand the situation is lost
Mm-hmm.
in coercing people into
Mm-hmm.
narrow roles.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. I mean it's really you put it down like perfectly and like it's those labels and it's that's like to me it's one of the reason why we I with the help of some friend think about creating platform like this in a sense where it's like those roles are very is limiting you to a sense. For example, if you reduce a human being that has like so much potential to a financial associate or an IT guy, or it's like
Yeah.
all you can do is IT. What about playing
Yeah.
guitar or piano or like
Yeah.
loving soccer and being able to read and or like it's really I mean we living in a society that doesn't allow you to actually be you because Manny and is more than just the IT guy. He's a guy that is curious about life, the guy that asks questions. He's the guy that is reading. That's the guy that is creative. So if you just take one portion of money and just present to the world as this, for example, you talk to someone like, "What do you do?" The first thing they answer is their job title. I'm like,
Yes.
I don't know if it did happen to you. Like, let's,
Yeah.
I, 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 I'm like, but you are more than just like that role. You
Yeah.
are what do? You do so much thing. You just you walk to get to work or you take
Yeah.
a train. So you play sports, you play guitar, you read books, you like you do so much thing,
Yeah.
but we break it down to like status or title or I'm a VP or I'm a minister of or prime minister. And
Yes.
I think it's really it's important that you have that role, but I think it doesn't make you you. What do you
No,
think about that?
it's, yeah. No, it definitely isn't. It's important to the functioning of society,
Mm-hmm,
these roles that we have, but
mm-hmm,
it's also it's also very limited in the way, it definitely limits the way we interact with each
mm-hmm,
other and the way we understand each other.
mm-hmm,
Um, when because sometimes that
mm-hmm,
prison is, it's the, I mean that or whatever, that cage or that limit is imposed from the outside,
mm-hmm,
and then we adopt it.
mm-hmm,
Then it becomes us. So like I
mm-hmm,
become that IT guy,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
because everyone else says that that's what I am. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I've seen examples of this. Like they say, if somebody's tall, they'll say, "Oh, you must be good at basketball." So that like, okay, now he has to be good at basketball.
Basketball,
He has
yeah.
to practice now because
Mm-hmm.
if he because he knows that if he's anywhere that there's a basketball hoop or a
Mm-hmm.
basketball, people are gonna look at him. Hey, can you dunk? Can you this? And
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's like, oh, I can't.
Mm-hmm.
It is like, oh, you can't do it. Why not?
Uh-huh.
You're like 6'9". Why can't you play basketball?
That's true. Uh-huh.
It's like a waste.
Yes.
So
Uh-huh.
people end up to trying to fit themselves into
Mm-hmm.
these things imposed from outside,
Mm-hmm.
not just the specific things like the
Mm-hmm.
basketball players, but also
Mm-hmm.
the more abstract roles, the more abstract idea of the
Mm-hmm.
fact that, like what you're saying, what do you do? The more
Mm-hmm.
abstract idea of that you are what you do, because
Mm-hmm.
when the question is asked from people, if you ask a kid what do you do, and they don't know anything about work and whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna say, oh, like I play with this
Mm-hmm.
my friend on the corner, and then I
Uh-huh.
built this ant hill,
Uh-huh.
and I found this thing, and I, you know, they'll talk. But the moment they learn, as they grow up, they learn that when
Mm-hmm.
people say what do you do, they mean
Mm-hmm.
what work do you do, like
Mm-hmm.
for money.
Mm-hmm.
They also have to adopt that idea.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's
Mm-hmm.
what I think, just naturally,
Mm-hmm.
because it's difficult if you have one set of beliefs
Mm-hmm.
and you always have to try to fake and translate to what society believes in order
Mm-hmm.
to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easier for most people to just
Mm-hmm. Yep.
adopt
Yeah.
society's thing.
Yeah.
Then there's no
Mm-hmm.
double think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they ask me what do I do, I don't have to translate it. Okay, what do they mean? What do I do? They mean for I am society. When they
Uh-huh.
ask me what do I do, I'm
Uh-huh.
IT guy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and it
And
just
it's yeah.
I think people become,
Uh-huh.
you know, they adopt
Mm-hmm.
whatever views society has
Yeah.
because it's comfortable. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah. And I think it's a great point. And I think I learned that recently. And like people actually it's more of a defense mechanism to a point where I don't want to like I always ask people if I say something, how are you? And like the cliche response is I'm good. But
yeah,
like there's so much thing behind that I'm good. Like I'm not
yeah,
feeling well or I'm sick or I'm emotionally hurt or I'm physically or like something is I think like we're living in a society where it's there's some expectation from some question and from some answers that are expected from the person that is answering the question to the fact that it actually becomes more of a ritual than
yeah,
actually something that is has a deep and true meaning. I'm like, and I think it's what you said is really important because it makes you now you want to fit in. You don't want to be like the outlier or the one that is rebelling against society. And
exactly. Because Saga, a lot of times
mhm,
when people ask me what do you do, I still do a little bit. I still say for work.
uh-huh,
I still do that
mhm,
sometimes,
uh-huh.
but you don't want to always be that person because
But yep, uh-huh,
every time they,
uh-huh,
if it's that same person asks you another thing,
uh-huh,
like how are you doing,
uh-huh.
and then you know what I mean,
Yeah.
then they'll be like, oh nah, Manny's a difficult, like,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
just
Yep. Oh, uh-huh.
like
And like you
so
complicate it.
right, you go
uh-huh,
very complicated. So
uh-huh,
but there's actually a video I can share with you. It has to
mhm,
do with
sure.
these specific ones, like how
Mhm,
are you doing and stuff like
mhm,
that. And I found it very interesting. It was like this. It was like
mhm,
a well done, um, kind of, not I don't know if it's exposition or whatever,
mhm,
essay style
uh-huh,
animated video about what is the purpose of these questions that have
mhm,
expected
mhm.
answers
Enters.
already.
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
And there's historical, like, they go back into, actually, particular to, I
mhm,
guess, Western culture. They go back in time, like what do people used to say,
say.
like
Uh-huh.
how, when they say how are
Mhm,
you doing?
mhm,
Some places say how are you going, or what do you know,
mhm,
whatever. But like
mhm,
they have all these ritualistic
mhm,
things, and
mhm.
they serve different
Purpose.
purposes.
True.
So like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's really important because, like, even in my culture or your culture, I feel like a lot of cultures, like, it's the same question that is asked, the same answer that is given, and we
yes,
don't quite take the time to think about what we're saying. It's like, "How are you doing?" And I'm good, but is it true? Are you good? And
yeah,
and I think it's a tough one because sometimes you don't want to be like too vulnerable, and
Yeah.
but I think it will help if we all are really genuine in our answer and not quite limit ourselves to what society expect from us. And I think like
Right.
it's just my opinion, but
The-
I think
That
like
that
it's
yeah.
yeah.
That's important. Like what
Yeah.
you're saying, I've thought about that too. I struggle with it.
Mm-hmm.
Should I be vulnerable and be the only person who says, "Oh, actually, I'm depressed." Like, like let's go around the circle. How's everyone doing? I'm okay. I'm doing okay. I'm doing this. I'm severely depressed. Like,
Uh-huh.
let me tell you about it. It's just
Yeah.
which I'm happy I'm not right now. But
Mm-hmm.
if I were, then
Mm-hmm.
it's then it feels even more disingenuous because
Yeah.
sometimes you're just having like a little bit of a bad day, and
Yeah.
then somebody's like, "How's it going?" And it's like,
Uh-huh.
"Actually, no, it's okay."
Yeah.
But sometimes
It's
someone might
yeah.
have died in your
Yeah.
family, someone you
Uh-huh.
don't know. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's like, okay, you can choose to be vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like you're putting your trust,
Mm-hmm.
sort of
Yeah.
in the other person, and
Yeah.
it depends. Like maybe it's a case by case.
Yes, yeah,
Do you
yeah.
trust?
Yeah, yeah,
Can
I
you
think
trust this person?
yeah. I mean, it's really it comes down. I think it was there's some yeah. It was a TED talk from Brené Brown. It's called "The Call to Courage," and she was saying some like great. If you have time, you can yeah you can go watch it. It's a really interesting one. And she
Yeah,
was
I like
saying
TED Talks.
how you shouldn't be saying sharing with everyone, but people have to earn your trust first. And I think it's a really important part. It's like, and it's a great topic and conversation. It's like being vulnerable and how you should be vulnerable and who you should be vulnerable around. I think it's really important not to be like I'm vulnerable all the time because not everyone cares, but with the people that you actually really trust and you have some faith in them. I think it's really important. And just gonna make a quick transition, and we talk about a lot, and it's how because I observe you at work, and I'm really impressed by the energy that you display on a constant basis. And I'm like, money is like he attracts positive energy. Like how
Really?
like how do you like in a it was really like I don't see it very often. It's really rare to see people like that. And like how do you become that energy positive energy type of person?
I don't know. I would say suffer.
Uh-huh. Huh?
Suffer. That's
Suffer.
what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It, you sometimes it can be your own. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can own it, like
Mm-hmm.
jujitsu. You can be
Mm-hmm.
something. You put yourself through something difficult,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and and then appreciate that somebody else doesn't have the choice
Mm-hmm.
whether or not they want to go through that. Their life is difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So I feel like if I have it's again it goes back to being kind of grateful.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if I have the space and time
Mm-hmm.
to choose how I want how and sometimes you can't choose. Sometimes things happen and we are biological creatures. When you're hungry, you're hungry. You can't
Mm-hmm.
choose whether or not to be hungry.
Mm-hmm.
But some things are a choice, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I can choose if I pass by someone whether to smile,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
to reach out to them,
Mm-hmm.
say hello.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes some things can be chosen,
Chosen.
and
Uh-huh.
those things, as much as possible,
Mm-hmm.
I want to choose the ones that align with the kind of energy that I want to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like every day making the choice,
Mm-hmm.
every moment making the
Mm-hmm.
choice.
Mm-hmm. That's very important. And I feel like I had a friend of mine, we talk about it a lot. And it's like, who do you want to be? Like, what type of human being do you want to be? Like, you can choose to be, we always joke about it. It's like, life is a movie. Like, you can choose 10 different person you can be. And you choose who you want to be, remember. Like, who do you want to be in this movie of life? For example, what role do you want to play? Do you want to be the one that makes people smile, just like you say? Do you want to be the one that helps others? Do you want to be the one that
Yeah.
is a good energy person, or do you want to be the one that is always complaining or
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
bad? I feel like it's really some of the thing you choose, and I think some of the thing that life make you go through it. And let's, for example, you suffer in a sense where you'll be able to be more compassionate. You'll be able to
Yes.
like,
That's exactly what
yeah,
I
like,
meant.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean, but like I want you to elaborate a little bit more. And I feel like
Yeah.
it's really really important to. I talked to a friend of mine, and like we talk a lot. We talk about the thing that you went through, the thing that, but it's give her so much thing to talk about, so much positive energy to share. I'm like, I used to think of life as like that Hollywood version. Everything is pink, everything is great. But
Yeah.
now I feel like for you to tell your story, not necessarily, but if you go through suffering or through hard stuff, if you can call it hard stuff, it's easier for you to relate to other than if you just haven't been through all those things. Like I think that's my take on it. And yeah,
Yeah.
if you can add a little bit more to it so people can have your perspective as well.
Yeah, I think you pretty much, you got it. That is it. And the sometimes the vehicle, sometimes if you if I feel like I don't have empathy for a certain situation,
Mm-hmm.
I have to think, I there might be a couple different options, or realities that are playing out. Maybe the issue is that I don't have the amount of empathy because there's something I lack, some experience I lack
Mm-hmm.
to be able to relate to the person,
Mm-hmm.
or that the person that maybe that somebody needs, I need to empathize with someone, but really that's not the situation. Maybe they're just complaining unnecessarily, like you
Mm-hmm.
said.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to figure out which is which,
Mm-hmm.
usually I try to put myself in a situation where I'm doing something that maybe helps someone else, but in the same vein takes away from me in some way or form. So like if you donate your time to help someone do whatever, it
Mm-hmm.
could be usually for some nothing. You don't want anything in return.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's like, help me
Mm-hmm.
do this. I help somebody who my stays with my friend.
Mm-hmm.
He had a baby,
Mm-hmm.
he wasn't expecting,
Mm-hmm.
and I sat down and helped him for a couple hours, just
Mm-hmm.
teach him how you can search for a job, like all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I and I told him, yeah, you can call me anytime. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you have an issue, like you
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out if you need somebody to give you a recommendation, because I've seen how he's a hard worker and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And sometimes I'm thinking, what am I gonna gain from this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? Because this is how our society
Yeah.
works. Like,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
if you spend time doing things and
Uh-huh.
you don't you don't get a reward, like a
Uh-huh.
visible reward, is what
Mm-hmm.
am I gonna gain from this? And
Mm-hmm.
the way I see it is that if I can somehow, by just spending my time trying to understand somebody,
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily my suffering, but
Mm-hmm.
it's their suffering.
Mm-hmm.
It's his suffering. Maybe through that process,
Mm-hmm.
I get to understand, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is why the person feels hopeless, or this
Mm-hmm.
is why,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And then it's like, okay, the next
Mm-hmm.
time I come
Mm-hmm.
across the same situation,
Mm-hmm.
I have a better example, a
Mm-hmm.
better way to see,
Mm-hmm.
feel really
Mm-hmm.
what the person is going through. So
Mm-hmm. It's yeah.
there's a lot of.
No, it's I think you like the way you describe it is so wonderful. Like in a sense where it doesn't necessarily have to be your suffering, but if you see that suffering and you witness it, it's allowing you to prepare for the next one coming. And your brain doesn't, because your brain is the one that is actually calculating. I would just, what do I get from this? What do I gain from this? What do I like?
Yes.
It's more like a transaction trade, but
Yes.
your true essence, yourself, doesn't know calculation. You see someone
No.
falling, you go and help. Like
Yeah.
someone is gonna get hurt, you go and help them. But
Yes.
that's the true you. But that true you is hidden with your brain being there and because your brain is a survival mechanism. It's like, oh, if I get this, if I do this, I'm
Yes.
gonna get this. If I do this, I
Yes.
think like that's really
E-
the difference. Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's good to be able to override that
Mm-hmm.
hesitance,
Mm-hmm.
or that, like, sometimes you won't take the action at all until
Mm.
you've been able to do the calculation, right?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
just like, nah, let me do the cost benefit the analysis. Uh, but when I some things, it's better to
Mm-hmm.
just override that,
Mm-hmm.
and quote unquote, suffer to
Mm-hmm.
gain,
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
gain the experience, to gain
Mm-hmm.
the understanding on
Mm-hmm.
this. And sometimes I've been going on, or I'll go on a run,
Mm-hmm.
and I will be in pain. Like yesterday I went on a run, and I felt
Uh-huh.
like my lungs were bleeding, like they
Yeah.
were, like
Mm-hmm.
literally bleeding, and I couldn't tell you what I was going to gain,
Uh-huh.
like,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
anything tangible that I was gonna
Tangible. Uh-huh.
gain
Uh-huh.
from the
Uh-huh.
suffering or
Uh-huh.
the pain,
Uh-huh.
but I knew that I knew that, like, it was going to enrich my
Uh-huh.
being,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So
No, it's a
it's
great.
just,
It's like it's yeah. I think it's and that's what like I have to go back to that book again, the Atomic Habit, and he made it a great point of we are designed in a quick way. I I ran. I want to get the reward right now. Like I help this guy. I want to get the reward right away. Like and it has to be tangible. If we don't touch it, we don't want it. And I think like it's the way we are designed. For example, like things go so fast. Things are very tangible. You want something today from Amazon, you get it the next day. Like there's no
yeah,
you're not practicing patience at that point. Like things go quick. The internet is slow. You like the world is crashing
yeah,
down.
yeah,
Like it's your phone is dead. You can't wait for it even to charge. It's like
yeah,
we are programmed in a way where we want the quick return. We want to like a right away return on investment. In the talk about even finances, a lot of people, me, for example, we cannot save much because we always want like we don't think about the long term. We always about short term return, like short term to from a workout. I do 10 push up. I should be big the next minute. And
yeah,
if I don't
yeah,
think I don't think it does work like that. And I'm really glad that you approach it like that. It's a really good point. Yeah, and it's very interesting. But let's we can. Uh, what do you like? What since we're in the COVID environment, I just don't want to not avoid like talk about a little bit. What have you gained or learned from the confinement and like the COVID thing? Like what's your take on that?
Oh, well, I mean, it's been a lot of things, though.
Mm-hmm,
I've been kind of glad, honestly.
mm-hmm.
I just to ask, like, has your family been affected by,
But
like, by
mm-hmm.
it? Do you have any family
Family,
members, or
not directly.
none?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
but like this being like just being because my mom just always call me, make sure you don't go out, make sure you stay home, and like they
Yeah,
worry about you, and
yeah,
it makes you more aware of how fragile your life and their life can be, and
yes,
like
yeah.
yeah, it's not necessarily affected, but you, for example, yesterday I was watching the news and like 400 people died in New York just about yesterday. And like you think about it, like one life is huge.
Yes,
Imagine 400 or like it's
yes,
the numbers just keep getting bigger and it makes you feel and relate to those person and that person can be you at any time and or even your
yes,
family member. I mean it's really it's very if you don't think about it like selfishly, it's very, very scary time we're living.
yes,
Yeah, and I think like it's
yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's very true what you
Mm-hmm,
said. Like,
mm-hmm,
to be able to see yourself
mm-hmm,
and your family, and the people who are affected.
mm-hmm,
Um, so for me, it's tough because
mm-hmm,
personally, I'm also healthy.
Mhm.
Thank God,
Mhm.
our employer continues to
Mhm.
keep us, during this time.
Mhm.
But there's so much going on that I think is a first for
Mhm.
everyone.
Mhm.
And being reminded of that fragility
Mhm.
is it's kind of tough because
Mhm.
most of the time, most deaths, I think the random nature of it is what really disturbs people, because the
Mhm.
actual death rate is
Mhm.
fairly low for the
Mhm.
disease,
Mhm.
but the random nature, like, we can't see germs and we can't see viruses.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there was nothing, those people who got sick, there was probably very little they could have done to
Mhm.
avoid.
Mhm.
It could have been anyone.
Mhm.
And they die for a very random, it's like dying, because so like an electric pole, the wind blew it over and hit you or
Mhm.
something like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Those kind of like
Death. Yeah.
random death,
Mhm.
even though it's happened, and it's not usually when a random death happens, it happens to very few people. Like,
Mhm.
like this person,
Mhm.
the thunder struck them, or
Mhm.
this, but now we're having random deaths that are happening to thousands of people
People. Uh-huh.
that were unnecessary,
Mhm.
because, I mean,
Mhm.
so I mean, there's political,
Mhm.
dimensions to it.
Mhm.
There's a lot. For me, I've taken it as a time for reflection.
Mhm.
um I actually, I like the quiet. I like
Mhm. Mhm.
that people don't have the same distract amount of distractions that they
Mhm.
usually have.
Mhm.
um I usually don't have that many distractions. I
Uh-huh.
like that
Mhm.
other people don't have as many distractions
Uh-huh.
going on around them,
Mhm.
because that will give us as a society time to reflect,
Like, uh-huh.
reassess what's important,
Mhm.
before
Mhm.
we get back to
2 years.
our daily grind.
Mhm.
Unless the situation is very dire for enough people that they
Mhm.
don't have even, money for food or
Food,
rent or
yeah.
something like that,
Mhm.
then it wouldn't be so good,
Food,
such a
yeah.
good thing for them to
Mhm.
reflect.
Yeah.
But for me, I try to stay. I finally, like, I've been trying to do a handstand, like
Mhm.
a handstand.
Yeah.
Finally got to do that, like, for like
That's
20
that's
seconds.
good, man. I've been
Like,
trying it for a long time. I don't see. I
I've
have
been
a
trying for a long time,
yeah,
man.
yeah. I have a phobia of, we were talking about it, of not being able to see what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah.
not it's, but it's, I think it's a really good thing. How is your family? Are
Yeah.
they, yeah,
Yeah, everyone's healthy.
yeah,
You know, where everyone, there's trying to pick new habits, like wash. I didn't know you had to wash your hands for 20 seconds.
yeah. Mhm.
Like, it makes a big difference. Like, the
Mhm.
difference between 10 seconds and 20
Mhm.
seconds is
Yep.
big. So
Yeah.
even going to, like, go outside, I come back in,
Mhm.
I wash my hands. Like,
And yep.
little habit,
Mhm.
just change of habit.
Yeah.
Because so much of the things that are important are invisible
Mhm.
to us, like
Mhm.
viruses and
Mhm.
germs and stuff.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we are, our senses, we're so
Mhm.
limited.
Yep.
Like, it'd be nice if we had, our eyes couldn't just focus from for a few millimeters to a
Mhm.
couple thousand yards, but
Mhm.
instead we
Mhm.
could see from, like, you know nanometers all
Mhm.
the way to, like,
Mhm.
satellites in space or something.
Mhm. Mhm.
Then we would be able to, like, I would be able to look at a surface and see the viruses, or
Virus.
look at,
Mhm.
what kind of we can recognize animals. If we
Mhm.
had the kind of vision that we need to really navigate the world better, we'd be able to look at
Mhm.
objects and know,
Mhm.
oh, this thing has streptococcus. Okay, I'm immune to that, so I can
Mhm.
touch that doorknob.
Mhm. Mhm.
But this thing has that stirring on that, so I can,
Yeah.
but we don't have that. So
Yeah.
we're like, in a sense, this is like reminding people, like, of how much other stuff is out there
Mhm.
that is just happening without we're not aware.
Where?
There's
Yeah.
this false feeling of being
Mhm.
aware, like, oh, if I
Mhm.
can see everything around me, or if
Mhm.
I can touch the things around me, then
Mhm.
I have awareness. But
Mhm.
you don't
It's
have
limited.
x-ray
Yeah.
vision, we
Yeah.
don't have heat vision, we don't
Mhm.
have this, we don't have
Mhm.
we don't have, I don't feel what magnetic waves, like, I can't feel radio waves. I
Mhm.
don't feel the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is
Uh-huh.
the Wi-Fi is in
Uh-huh.
my room because
Uh-huh.
I'm talking to you,
Uh-huh.
but I don't feel the way. You know what I
Yep.
mean? I don't
Mhm.
experience them.
Mhm.
So bringing awareness to
Mhm.
of the things that are around us that we don't experience.
Uh-huh.
I think that abstract idea,
Mhm.
it's a meta thought that I think is important for people to have.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and I think it's like it's the that's how I see this virus as making us believe in the unseen, in the thing that we don't see that are invisible to the human eyes, at least that the one that we know of, and be able to even trust it that it's there. Like no one saw the virus, no one seen
yeah,
the virus,
yes,
but we can see that people are dying from it, and
yeah,
we know the symptoms. And I think like that will actually bring us to our last point. And I'm just glad that we made that transition without even realizing it. Is spirituality in God, and I think like it's really really what it comes down to. It's like okay, how can you trust or believe in a virus that you don't see and deny God existence because you don't see it? And I feel like those two just come hand in hand. And I think it's God's way, from my belief, my opinion, understanding, reinforcing that things don't actually need to be seen for you to believe it. Because the things that are very essential to your life is actually not seen by the human eye. What's your take on spirituality in time like this? And in general too, yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I think t- times trying times definitely heighten people's
Mm-hmm.
awareness. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say of there being something else, especially when it's
Mm-hmm.
something that when death is the topic,
Mm-hmm.
especially you see, I think a lot of people gravitate towards
Mm-hmm.
some kind of religion.
Mm-hmm.
For me, spirituality has been, especially in this time, it's been the idea that my life, although my life is limited,
Mm-hmm.
like in time, my me as Manny, this incarnation or whatever of
Mm-hmm.
myself is limited.
Mm-hmm.
I still have so much. There's still so much else,
Mm-hmm.
like there's like I think we kind of had this discussion before where
Mm-hmm.
I always feel a shared sense of existence, like
Mm-hmm.
something I don't I'm having this experience. There's a entity or something that's
Mm-hmm.
having this experience of
Mm-hmm.
being me. That
Mm-hmm.
same entity is having that experience of being
Mm-hmm.
you,
Mm-hmm.
and that experience of
Mm-hmm.
being, you know, my neighbors and everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea to me that the idea to me that like there's no purpose or there's no this never comes into play because I
Mm-hmm.
always feel like the existence is a purpose. It is,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
it, it's an action.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the sort of the realm in which it
Mm-hmm.
makes existence as an action and which it makes sense as a spiritual one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not a physical
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there doesn't need to be uh the the feeling is enough of a validation because
Mm-hmm.
most most of these these concepts, they're not even really concepts, they're
Mm-hmm.
feelings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're not things that have grounded in reality,
Mm-hmm.
but they are grounded
Mm-hmm.
and they're grounded in experience. They're
Mm-hmm.
grounded in things you have in your dreams. For instance,
Mm-hmm.
people say, oh, look, I'm only, you don't die when you go to sleep. You're still alive. You're still
Mm-hmm.
experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
You're still going through things. So, but we don't have knowledge of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't remember what happened while I was asleep,
Mm-hmm.
but I was in that space. I was
Mm-hmm.
on the bed. I was breathing the air. I could
Mm-hmm.
feel the sheets. My
Mm-hmm.
well, my body could feel it. I don't
I see
remember,
it. Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
having those moments, it brings me to that more of a feeling of, okay, I don't have to understand everything
Mhm.
that's happening,
Mhm.
but I also don't need to doubt my experience just
Mhm.
because I can't
Mhm.
verify it,
Mhm.
definitively. Not
Mhm.
most of the things that can affect us very, uh, you know, the things that have very strong effect on us. Some things are invisible
Yep.
and just not even they don't exist anywhere on this realm
Mhm.
to be able to compare, to be able to measure, to
Mhm.
be able to see or
Mhm.
find or search for.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's important to have some kind of faith and
Mhm.
trust in
Mhm.
when we get a feeling that has no direct link to anything that we can point to and say, hey, like
Mhm.
this is, I can draw a picture here for you,
Mhm.
or I can like,
Mhm.
write a book about this. So
Mhm.
just, yeah, I'm more, I guess, in tune with my my personal my personal feelings and my internal
Mhm.
the internal like expressions that are coming through,
Mhm.
um from all the, I don't know whether it's dreams
Mhm.
or wherever it comes from, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of things that don't have simple explanations,
Mhm.
don't even have words for,
Mhm.
but they are real,
Yeah.
and that's what I feel.
No, it's really how I've been, and I think you touched 2 points that to me is very important when it comes to spirituality. Actually, three. The first one is feelings, and I think it's just about feelings. It's just what do you feel? You know, it's true, and it's like I think about it was more like someone that never tasted sugar their whole life, and you're trying to explain to them what sugar does taste like. It's like the only way for you to know what sugar tastes like is to just to have just to have it, to have that to experience it. And I feel like the feeling in the experience and be able to actually just trust that it's true, not necessarily have be able to verify it. It's like if your brain, because your brain always asks you that question of what do you mean by this, like what do you mean by this, like what, it's always asking you question that you don't actually have the answer, but just
Yeah,
to trust that you are in that process, that your existence itself is a purpose. I think it's like it's the it's a really great understanding. I've heard it last, I think like 2 days ago, and talking about is like, okay, we talk about qualities and values, all the stuff. That is great, but existence comes first before you actually able to have all those values. So like for you to be even disciplined, you have to exist. Like
yeah,
you have to exist either like spiritually or physically. Existence itself is the essence. I think it's, man, it's I'm so glad that like I had thought of you and you actually accepted this invitation, and just I think like we can talk about it like for days and days
yeah.
and
Well,
yeah,
no, no, thanks
yeah,
for reaching out. I think it's cool. I always wanted to do a podcast
yeah.
style kind of thing. I wanted
Mhm,
to do, like, I like that you've done, you took the
mhm,
initiative to like
mhm,
do it, because I've always myself, I thought, okay, the idea of podcast is interesting because I like
mhm,
having conversations with people. So,
mhm,
and so of course you are
mhm.
always very interesting to speak with because I also
Nah,
enjoy
man.
your
Thank
perspective.
you.
So, thank you. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, you're right. Like what you say about sugar, like especially if you only ever had 1 grain of it. If you only ever had that 1 grain and you
Mhm,
somehow you ate it,
mhm.
you didn't even know this was something to eat. It just
Yep,
accidental. You
yep,
ate it.
yeah.
Now, oh, you've tasted something,
Mhm,
and then it's gone. Like it's gone from your taste.
uh-huh.
No, you can't even get it to get to share with someone else.
Exactly,
Like,
exactly, yeah.
so
Mhm,
would you doubt? Do you? Well, no. You can either doubt that you had that experience,
mhm,
or you can hold on to it
mhm,
as a truth
mhm,
of something beyond,
mhm,
the limits of what
mhm.
is already around here, or
Yep.
with you. So
Yeah, and I think it's this, because like I think that's what it's really important is that word themselves has limitation, because they can only explain what it's really hard for you word to explain the realm that is not physical. If it's physical, it's easy, but if it's like spiritual, if it's like a different type of experience, you can't quite. And it's like
Yes.
even when it comes to love, you can't explain your feelings. This is like
Yeah.
you're trying to put it into words, but they don't quite say half of what you feel.
Yeah.
And I think the same applies to like spirituality in general.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just before I used to think about it as like something that, of course, you practice it, but I think it's so much of a tiny drop outside of the big ocean of spirituality, and everyone has their different experience, and you can't quite say that this experience is wrong or is right because that's not yours. That's not
Yeah.
your sugar. That's not your experience. And I think like it's really important to have this conversation, to exchange, to share, to learn from each other. And I feel like I enjoy talking to you, man. It's like
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
learn
Well,
something
really.
new, man. I just
Yeah. Enjoy talking to you, and I actually think what you're saying is true. The words is tough to
yeah.
come up with.
Hmm.
Like it very true because of that limitations, and
Yeah.
it's almost like to me, I always almost think spirituality is the the experience that's like in the in the gaps. You know, it's the
Hmm.
one that isn't covered by mental, physical,
Hmm.
even sometimes emotional, because we
Hmm.
use the word emotional, but
Hmm.
sometimes that's not quite it, because
Hmm.
sometimes
Hmm.
sometimes the direction, the thing direction that I feel that is the one that my like the spirit
Hmm.
tendency wants to go towards
Hmm.
is nowhere in alignment with
Hmm.
my feelings or
Hmm.
my emotions or my thoughts
Yep.
or what my body wants.
Uh-huh.
It has nothing to do with
To do it. Yep. Uh-huh.
mind, body,
Uh-huh.
emotions,
Uh-huh.
intellect,
Uh-huh.
nothing.
Uh-huh.
It's its own separate thing. So
Hmm.
I almost think of spirituality as like
Hmm.
the that realm that lies outside,
Hmm.
you know, body,
Hmm.
mind, even even emotions,
Hmm.
because sometimes it does feel like it's like you can have a call and you hear about people decide that they're gonna go up to a mountain and pray
Hmm.
for however
Uh-huh.
long.
Uh-huh.
Their body doesn't want to do it,
Yes.
maybe their mind doesn't want to do it, maybe
Hmm.
their emotion doesn't want to do it, but
Hmm.
something,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that thing falls outside the
Yeah.
realm of
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
all the areas that are easier
Hmm.
to verbalize and
Hmm.
to rationalize and to
Hmm.
so
Yeah. And
um,
it's like I was just talking to a friend of mine, and like even before the podcast, we were talking about because we're talking about like people in general. Some people, and I think of true strength, not in a sense of physicality or even emotional strength. And I think like all those things, it's really good, like mental strength. I think it's really important, and it's very great to have it. And I think that the one that no one can touch is your spirit, and the strength of your spirit sometimes is bigger than your person. It's like some people, they might look nonchalant or very like not big in size. Some people, and but their spirit is so strong, and it can take so much. Then you and it almost to a point that those the spirit drag their body. It's not like their
yes,
body drag their spirit, but it's the opposite. Their
yes,
spirit is so big that the body is more like a follower to the spirit rather
yes,
than the spirit following the body. And I think it's to me that's really because for example you can like talk someone down, like you can curse them out, you can punch them, but of course you have
you,
you made some impact on the emotion and in the body and even in the mental at time. But I think like the part that you didn't actually hit is the spirit,
yeah,
and that is completely detached from the body. Then yes, you might take them down for a minute or two, but the next minute they're gonna come back because the spirit is so strong and
yes,
nothing
yeah,
can take it down because the essence is not body. It's just something that we don't know what it is, but it's
yeah.
very
Well,
interesting that yeah.
it's almost like life, right? Like
Mm-hmm,
what is the difference between dead and alive?
mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm,
people come up, things with like soul and all
mm-hmm,
these things, but
mm-hmm,
we still don't have a way
mm-hmm,
in the sciences to really they've created an artificial cell, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, but we don't have any way to really classify what it is that keeps the body alive, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
because you can, you can take somebody's heart out.
Mm-hmm.
They have things like brain death and all
Mm-hmm.
these things they
Mm-hmm.
for explanations,
Mm-hmm.
but in essence, we can reconstruct. We can, even if we reconstructed a human being, like,
Mm-hmm.
we don't really have a way to, like, let's
Mm-hmm.
say, infuse life into it or
Yep.
something like
Yep.
that. So
Yeah. Uh-huh.
that there's obviously something in this we, the people call, like, the, I forget what it is. There's a technical term, but
Mm-hmm.
there's, like, no, it's because there's no way for us to really get a hold on it. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's the one that's more relegated to the background,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's like you're saying, it comes first. It comes before everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this the you have to you have to exist first before you can
Mm-hmm.
try to be disciplined or
Mm-hmm.
something. But
Mm-hmm.
it becomes the one that's relegated to the background because it's a given, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like, it's almost like a given,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
like, it's taken for granted that, like,
Mm-hmm.
if we're discussing,
Mm-hmm.
then we're alive, so
Mm-hmm.
it's unimportant
Yeah.
that, like,
Yeah.
how are we alive right now
Mm-hmm.
becomes
Mm-hmm.
unimportant,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
it really is, like,
Yeah. I think it's the biggest and most important question, and think that the reason why scientists in general don't want to talk about it because we don't understand it. Like we don't
yeah,
know what it is, where it's come from. It's like that unknown that we don't want to.
because we're so, not only that we don't understand it,
Mm-hmm.
we're so far from understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
We're so far from anything that begins to try to even answer the question. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, even our language doesn't really
Mm-hmm.
properly address a lot
Mm-hmm.
of these things. That's why,
Mm-hmm.
because there's almost no starting point.
Point.
Like,
Yep.
philosophers try different,
Mm-hmm.
ideas, but really they focus more on morality.
Mm-hmm.
And even when it comes to the issue of existence, they try to come up with metaphors
Mm-hmm.
for, like, I don't know if you Plato's allegory of the cave,
Yep.
like it's like similar matrix type of
Yeah.
ideas,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the way we really don't have anything. and
Yeah.
and and that comes back, there's a, for me, like, spirituality, also part of it is realizing that there's no need to explain.
Yep.
um
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know
Yeah.
just sometimes just to experience is
Yeah.
enough.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's I have to write that one down. Yeah. And I think it's like it's just so we getting close to the ending, and I really enjoy, like we can keep on going forever. Enjoy having you here, and I would like to have you again if your time allows it, so we can dig deeper into that some subject that we haven't discussed
Yeah, yeah, for
much
sure.
about. And I would encourage you to open your own podcast, and I feel like it would be a great conversationalist. Like you will be able to have like great conversation with great people. And
Oh,
what
thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
I try.
What is your last one? What do you want to share to the world?
Uh, that's I hope everyone stays healthy. Um, love yourselves, and you know, and try to just create that space to be able to process, whatever is happening, so that at the very least, if we are able to love ourselves, we can
Mhm,
extend that our
mhm.
space to be able to love other people. So,
That's absolutely true. And for those that don't want to follow you, where can they follow you? Like on Instagram, on social media?
oh man, I don't use that stuff.
Okay.
I used to have one. I wanted to
Mhm,
when I wanted to go into boxing. I thought
mhm,
I would make, like, training videos
mhm,
and
mhm,
stuff.
mhm.
I think it's like Manny Adumbire, actually, if
Okay.
you on Instagram, but
Okay.
I don't use
You're
it.
not very active. Yeah. No worries. So like the next,
Yeah.
yeah. So just I'll find a way to have you again, so people will just get to know you a little bit more, and we'll talk about like training and boxing and like how you came to become this person that you are today. And I think it's really important to talk about those two things in the future. Man, and Manny, thank
Yeah,
you
yeah.
again, man. I really
Yeah,
appreciate you.
thanks, Saga. Yeah, I hope hope you have a good. You said two finals left, or you
Mm,
had three?
three, yeah, but yeah, two
Oh,
next week, one the week after, yeah, and trying to find a way to motivate myself to
yeah,
keep it going, yeah.
yeah, man. Just
Yeah.
keep at it. Your final stretch.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll try to have that mentality in the end.
Yeah,
All right, man. Thank you again.
yeah. All
All right,
right, Tyler. All
goodbye.
right, be good.
Bye.